This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelly Bidlin.
Hey, it is Long Shots Golf Betting Podcast here on the VSiN Podcast Network. I am Matt Brown. That is Wes Reynolds. If you're watching us over on the YouTube channel, hello, appreciate it. Nice little growth here on this channel. Might be even moving this thing more towards the video side of things. So go ahead, be sure and hit that subscribe button down below. Hit the little bell so that you get notified every time that we put something on the channel. On the audio side, subscribe, rate, review as always. Do appreciate this. Kelly Bidlin out gallivanting across this country of ours did not join us here. Wes, let's since he's not here, let's take time to talk trash about him. Could you not carve out an hour on your week-long vacation to pop in with your friends and talk a little golf? Like, that's where Kelly's at right now. Like, he is so deep into whatever he's doing, couldn't carve out an hour for us.
Is he somewhere in Nashville on Broadway right now?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I know that was part of his itinerary.
We're we're about noon Pacific. Is he already about? We're about 12 Pacific right now. Is he about 12 deep already over there in Nashville? Is that why he couldn't join us?
Might be, and maybe to go outside where it's not over 100 degrees would be nice. Even though they get that nice little humidity in that part of the country, like they will have in St. Louis this week.
Kelly will be back next week for the final event of the year, so we'll get his final thoughts. He did text us a couple little things. We'll get to that whenever we get to the picks, but light week for him, as you would imagine, as he's off over there trying to get in some rest and relaxation before we get into the thick of everything in football season. But Wes, before we head here to the BMW, I think it is only apt for us to note that a win is a win is a win is a win is a win. And, listen, Scottie Scheffler won the tournament. None of us had Scottie Scheffler. However, you did come in here and say, you know what? I'm going to play the winner without market. And due to the absolute collapse of me and Kelly's guy there in Sam Burns, you get home, buddy, and we get an outright second there, and we get a win because, hey, it's a without Scottie Scheffler market as Scottie runs away with the tournament, as we kind of thought he might with the way that he was playing. But get that ticket across the finish line, buddy. We've been flirting with these over and over and over and over and over again here on the pod. It looked like we were destined for yet another runner-up with Sam Burns. Unfortunately, he went out there and bogeyed 18 for you, and that's a winner for you, my friend.
Ooh, thank you, Matt. And we take him how we can get him, man. That's how hard it has been this year to get across. I can imagine for Scottie, who's got these 5 runner-ups and 5 other top 5s between the win at the American Express and, of course, the win last week in Memphis, where he shoots 17 under par, wins by 8, and Siwoo gets in there at 9 under par. And if you were watching the coverage on CBS on Sunday, there was a little cute little video, basically, where they're in the scorer's tent, and Siwoo Kim's little son is checking over the scorecard and, making sure to verify that. And it was an adorable moment. It reminded me of me, okay, this is a win, right? Right. He's going to finish second, and he's 9 under par. At least maybe we're going to get a chop if Sam Burns ends up parring number 18. But Scottie absolutely ran away with it. And we kind of figured, okay, at one of these events, he's going to run away. Yeah. He's going to win. He's just going to be you know what? I'm going to hit every approach shot to, 7 to 10 feet and make the putts this week, not going to burn the edges. And that's exactly what he did. And he was 5-1. And we got a point earlier in the summer where he got kind of the 6-1 plus 650. Never got to the 8 to 10-1. Well, those days are now over because now 3-1 this week to win the BMW Championship, the clear favorite. And there is a lot of separation, 6-1 to 10-1 is separation, but not that much separation. But 3-1 to 16-1, that's a lot of separation. So now he is back to defend the BMW Championship, which he won last year at Caves Valley. But this week he'll be doing so at Bellerive Country Club in St. Louis.
What we don't get enough of, and we have talked about this for multiple years now on this podcast, and I know that there are some people out there at the PGA Tour that listen to the stuff that we're doing, and I don't know if you have the I don't know if you have the clout to get anything done on the broadcast or stuff, but like, Wes, I continue, like, I shake my head, like, not enough is talked about the monetary aspect of golf and whatever. Like, not only did Sam Burns miss that putt, which then gave Siwoo the out, that was a $600,000 missed putt. Like, that was a $600K bogey that he made on 18, right? I mean, like, and what we don't do is we're just like, oh, well, that cost him a few points in the FedEx. Like, right. No, that cost him $600,000. Like, what are we doing? Like, people, this is stuff that people like to hear. It resonates. Like, if you're wondering why he is absolutely gutted, yeah, he wasn't going to win the tournament. We all know that. Scottie ran away with it. But you know what? That cost him $500,000 that bogey did.
And I completely agree with that. And I think maybe one of the reasons, I don't know if it's a directive from the PGA Tour because of, obviously the dollar figures that have been thrown out for Live Golf, where it's like, oh, well, that's not a lot of money. That's $600,000, a hell of a lot of money. Yeah. I don't care what it is. And, speaking of Live Golf, is this going to be the last event in my hometown of Indianapolis this week up at Chatham Hills in Westfield, just north of the city? So we shall see, as they did, by the way, cancel the team championship that was supposed to be in Michigan next week. So they're going to do it all, I guess, this time, and the concerts got canceled. So, I find that kind of ironic. We're talking about how the money should be kind of advertised in terms of, hey, this means, $500,000 here. Yeah. And because you have these guaranteed money for some of these players that they went and signed for on Live, which is looking like it's about to end, that maybe that will be advertised a little bit more going forward.
I sure hope so, because it's just, like you're standing over it, and it's one thing if, like, they're just saying, if he saves par here, this is for a tie of second. It's like, okay, cool, I guess. It's another thing if you're like, if he misses this putt, it's going to cost $600,000. Like, that brings gravity to the moment. Like,
because then all of us put ourselves in that situation. Like, oh my God, we feel pressure just playing with our buddies for, $20 a hole and buying the drinks afterwards over like a 3-footer. And this is for $600,000. It's amazing.
It's crazy to me. And like you said, maybe it's because of all of that. Maybe it'll change if Liv goes away or something. But I mean, if we're trying to make the game more compelling, and don't get me wrong, golf's in a great place, and I think we're much better off than we were 5 years ago and all of that. But man, like, that brings real drama to it, especially when you're talking about a situation where there's a runaway winner. The only drama on that putt was the $600K that was up for, that was the only drama that was all. He was easily into the top 50. He's easily into the top 30. Like, there was no drama on that putt other than the fact that it was for a whole lot of money. So, like, let's add to that. Let's make some drama here. Let's make this sport like, wow, okay, yeah, I get it. Even though they're dead in the water, there's no chance of them winning this thing. Like, there is still every single reason to go out there and par a hole or birdie a hole or whatever it might be, because every shot you drop or every single shot you gain is actually worth money.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been, some might have been watching the main event conclusion that happened a couple weeks ago at the World Series of Poker out here in Las Vegas. And it's like, man, that dude just lost $4 million in chips on a stone bluff, that does resonate with people, and that does create drama. And certainly the game could use a lot more of that.
So we knew, we said this last week heading in, Scottie could not be caught no matter who won the tournament last week, but he won the tournament last week, which actually means he cannot be caught. And so he will be your champion this year. So $24 million tacked onto his bank account there, Wes, as Scottie goes out, and the $100 million bonus pool that they have out there, he will get the big portion of it. Deserved. You and I have both said this. We have never wavered from this on this podcast, which is, yes, he did not win at the rate that he was winning the last 2 years. However, his play was still the best play in the world. And it showed throughout the statistics. It showed throughout the finishes, as you mentioned. Not only, yes, there's the 2 wins now, but littered with second places and top fives and all of that. He's been the most consistent golfer on tour. all season long, and he's going to get paid for it here. As again, the bonus pool in the about a quarter of it is going to head in his bank account.
Was his little boy, by the way, his eldest little boy, Bennett, of course, Remy, newborn in April, got to see Daddy win for his first time. But his eldest little boy, Bennett, was he growing his hair out until Daddy won again? Like, did you notice, like, when he was coming across the green, he has this great long set of blonde locks. It's like, I would kill for that hair. I would love to have that hair again. And maybe that's what he was doing. Like, that was like the playoff beard in the Stanley Cup playoffs for the NHL, where it's like, okay, now I'm going to give it a snip now that Daddy got back in the winner's circle.
Yeah, just a reminder, if you guys don't know how this works. So the bonus pool actually closes out after this event, and then the championship has a separate $40 million pool that they will play for there in that one. So as we said, Scottie has locked up the first place. Second place, a fight between Fitzpatrick and Young. So that's, if you're wondering what the difference is, the difference between 13 million and 8 million. So, I mean, it's a pretty big difference there between second and third. But of course, third could also still go to Siwoo Kim, who is within striking distance of all of this. So there is more than just the payday on the actual $20 million purse that we're getting in on this tournament this week, Wes, but we're also getting the season-long payouts as well, that there could be some jostling up and down that leaderboard too.
Some President's Cup points, by the way, not for money, but, you know, we're talking FedExCup points, but I believe this is the last week for the President's Cup points cutoff, where the top 6 get the automatic spots, and then Brandt Snedeker, of course, makes the captain's pick for the remaining 6 on the team. So there is kind of a close positioning. As I was looking at those points, I was like, you know, like 4th to about 8th or 9th is really close. Obviously, Scottie well at the top, and he's certainly going to make it and be already locked in, I think, actually, as of last week. But that still matters to these guys. Now these guys are thinking about it like, I kind of want that automatic pick. I don't want to leave it up to chance that I don't get a captain's pick. That applies to one of the guys I played this week.
And one of the other things here, as we storylines heading in, and usually when there's a runaway winner like there is with Scottie, we just kind of say like, yeah, Scottie lapped the field. It is what it is. But it was the play of Rory McIlroy. And, you know, we talked about it last week, and we said 0 chance we would play Rory at that number. And if you kind of look, you know, the season, he picked and choose his events, didn't play all that often. We're talking about a guy that was not inside the top 50, inside the top 5 very often this season. And with that, he goes out and finishes 66th out of 68. And the reason 68, we did have a withdrawal in the field as well. So damn near dead last, Wes. And Rory came out and said, yeah, you know what? There probably was some rust, and I probably, you know, should have played some warm-up stuff and didn't get a lot of reps in with all of this. And so, I mean, he did own it there for a little bit, but pretty shocking. Rust, no rust, whatever, that you get that type of performance out of, again, from a point standing anyway, top 5 player in the world.
Yeah, when do you see him shoot 3 of his 4 rounds over par, which is exactly what he did. And it was the rust that was clearly apparent, because he has played well at Memphis before. I mean, it's maybe not as defined as it is with Scottie, but there's not really a weak course for Rory McIlroy either. Like, he can win anywhere because of how he drives the golf ball. So now he shifts out to about 16-1 this week in the the full marketplace. Scottie obviously 3-1, the well-defined favorite, but it's kind of like Rory now goes to a course where you think, okay, this is kind of like his wheelhouse. This is a little bit longer. This is, mid 7,400, par 70. So this is one of the longest par 70s they're going to play all year. And it's like, okay, when driving the golf ball is important, wouldn't you want the longest hitter on the PGA Tour and Rory McIlroy? But you also got to wonder, it's like, yeah, I'm kind of out of the FedEx Cup. Certainly, I'm not going to mail it in by any stretch, but it's like I'm out of it. And Rory always felt that the FedEx Cup was a lot more important than maybe some other players. He's like, hey, I think this is a big honor. This is a season-long deal. And, obviously coming from the UK where soccer is important, like the table is important, where they don't have playoffs. So it's like, okay, this defines your season and how great of a year you had. So it was always kind of important to him. And now he's not really in the mix because he hasn't played a lot this year because he's had a lot of off weeks. So, we'll see how he does, even though you would think that this course would certainly fit him at Bellerive.
Yeah. I mean, everything from just like you said, a profile standpoint for sure. But it's interesting for me to kind of figure out where he's at with his game, because it is shocking to me. Rust, no anything to go out. Like you said, I mean, it's one thing to have one bad round, maybe even two bad rounds or something like that, but to string together 3 of the 4, it seemed like maybe there was a little bit something more than rust going on there, that like something was wrong with his swing even, right? Like that he just something wasn't clicking.
He kind of lost it more over the weekend too, and spoke about that. So, we'll see if he can rebound. I mean, he's certainly a guy that is capable of doing that, but not to give anything away, he did not make my card this week. I'm still not sure of how to treat this.
Me neither, and mainly because, and this is crazy to say, because obviously I still think Rory is probably the second best player in the world, but he's priced basically at the same price or shorter than guys that I think are probably better than him right now, or playing better than him, or certainly more consistent than him over the course of the season and all that. And like, we kind of have to at times handicap based off price and price alone, right? Again, I'm on, last week I'm on Aaron Rai, not because I loved Aaron Rai, but like the number from what I made the number to what the number was in the market was so far off that I was like, okay, I kind of have to play this dude at this number. Rory's just like the opposite of that, where I look at this number, and if Rory was sitting more 2022, which is kind of in that range where I think he probably fits, I think he fits in there with Fitzpatrick and Burns and all of those guys. I mean, I think he's about the same as those guys this week, and the fact that he's shorter than that like crosses him off the list.
And there are like several guys,
like right off the bat.
Yeah, there are several guys playing better. You mentioned Burns, Fitzpatrick, Cameron Young.
Yeah,
Siwoo, even like guys that are you wouldn't maybe necessarily say, oh yeah, they're better players than Rory, but they're better right now in terms of how they're playing and how they finish their season, because Rory's season has had so many, I think, lapses in the schedule with him. So, I don't think he's going to mail it in. I think he's a competitor. He's not the type of guy that does that. But is there a sense of complacency? Is there like, you know what? I won the Masters. I defended my title at the Masters. That's a great year. And I don't want to say satisfied, but, maybe resigned to that. We'll see how he plays. And then watch him go out and shoot like 63 or something on Thursday. And it's like, okay, there he is.
And he very well could, because he's Rory McIlroy and he's one of the best players in the world. It's one of those where if he does, then so be it, and I'll be off of him. It's kind of like we said with some of these other golfers, right? It's like, if I miss out on it, it's not going to haunt me. Like, I think there's good process behind us not putting him on the card. But as we said, Scottie's got this thing absolutely locked up. But if you're wondering about some of these other guys and where they could get, like we said, the fight for second is real between Fitzpatrick and Young. Third, Siwoo Kim, not far off there, depending on where Fitzpatrick and Young finish in this tournament. Siwoo could make a claim for the third spot. You have Wyndham Clark, Sam Burns, Chris Gotterup, Tommy Fleetwood, Colin Morikawa, and Ludwig Oberg that are all in the top 10 right there. And again, that's real money in this bonus pool that we're talking about. I mean, like absolute, like real cash, right? I mean, this is one of those where number 3 is $8 million. 4 and 5 is 6.5 and 5.4. And the difference between all the way down at, let's call it 30th, is less than $500,000, right? So it's like getting into that top 10, Wes, is actual real money when we're talking about this bonus pool. Yeah, no question about it. So there's a lot of different like motivations for guys. I talked about President's Cup. I believe like last week we saw the top 50. Obviously, the guys that made it here are now in the signature events next year. And I believe the top 30 get in all the majors, even if they're not already exempt, which probably most of them are. But you're thinking of a guy like at the bottom of the top 30, like a Bud Cauley. Yeah, I mean, that cinches all of his spots in the majors. So there's a lot of different motivations here this week. And I know we get to that part of the schedule because you and I both, and I think everybody out there, we're all jonesing for the football, right? But these are still big events. And I think that they're still trying to find that equilibrium here with the FedExCup Playoffs, where it's like, hey, these matter, where it's not like when the majors are done over in England and Scotland in July that the season's over. Like, I think they treat the fall season certainly like that, because it's hard to really keep
up with that during football and basketball getting started. But
and Wes, I don't want to get too talk radio into this, but I honestly think that the fix for this, they just have to, and I know this might not go great with some of the sponsors and things and all of that. I have to figure out how to do it, but like, you have to play these events at famous courses because like that's where you get built-in intrigue, right? Like if this was at Pebble this week as opposed to Bellerive, you know what I'm saying? Like yes. If the tournament last week was at Whistling Straits and it's not at, at TPC Southwind or whatever, like it's got to be a course that pops for the average fan or even golf fans just in general, right? Because if not, you just get hyped up either for the majors because they're the majors or whatever, or just like the off chance that it's on one of the courses that, Torrey Pines obviously is super popular or whatever. But like, I think for the playoffs, if you want to bring some more juice, like we said, one, emphasize the money more, and two, you just got to play these first two at signature courses, like courses that people know without having to be golfers, without having to be golf nicks, without all the things like that. I think that's the way that you really bring some juice to this.
Yeah, because the viewers, obviously, and the spectators, they know, okay, this hole is famous, or you don't want to hit it there because they watch this coverage every single year. But I got asked about this actually last week. I did a spot with TSN Toronto last week, and they're like, do you think maybe match play is the answer? Which I am personally open to. I am open to match play as like the final playoff event, like at the Tour Championship. I think that adds some intrigue where it's like, okay, Scottie versus Rory heads up, or Xander versus Ludwig Aubert heads up for the marbles here. I think that would make a difference as well. And plus the fact that you lost that Dell match play earlier in the year that used to be held at Austin Country Club down in Texas. Now, I just like that. I think that when it's one-on-one, it changes the strategy. And plus, I think to your suggestion, Matt, of putting that on a famous course, whether it's like a Pebble Beach or something that is relatively known that the average casual golf fan would know, I think that would add a lot more intrigue.
Yeah, it's to me, when I have to explain to my group of friends who are all golfers and all golf fans, like about Bellerive and TPC South, so like if you have to do that, then it's kind of like, I think you're missing the point here, right? I mean, I understand, and you need to hit different parts of the country. And I know there's a lot of politics that goes on behind the scenes and the sponsors and the stuff and all things like that. But like, for me, you want your playoffs to mean something, and specifically from a viewer standpoint. And like right now, me and you are into it, and like golf, like super hard, die-hard golf fans are into it, but it just, nobody else is, and it's tough for us to sit there and try and, make the case for it or whatever. So hopefully, again, there's more changes to come. And we talked about that earlier in the season. We've heard some, there's going to be changes coming down the pike here. Hopefully one of those is like, these events get played on signature courses that everybody's familiar with, that like the scenery is unbelievable, all of the things that make some of these tournaments like bigger than even the players themselves,
Yeah, no question about it. So, like we got a good course this week, but we don't see it every year. Like Bellerive, and looking at the layout, like this looks pretty interesting, by the way. The last, I think, major event that people would know that was held here was the 2018 PGA Championship, which was run by Brooks Koepka. Tiger Woods finished 2 back as runner-up. So this is a good course that has held major championships before, and St. Louis getting the rotation now of the BMW Championship as it goes around the Midwest pretty much every single year.
Yeah. Wes, one thing to add to your match play thing, and then we'll get into the tournament this week. What if, because you still want to get like maybe to the point where the top 30 players get to, make it to this bonus pool and all the stuff like that. What if like Thursday and Friday was still stroke play and you played yourself into the top 8, and then Saturday and Sunday was then like once you play yourself into the top 8, then that makes the bracket, and then like and then you play match play from there.
Well, that is how they do it, by the way, at the U.S. Amateur, which I don't know if you watched. I watched a little bit of it last weekend. Congratulations to Englishman Jack Whaley, who, by the way, wins. He won at Marion Country Club, and then Philly Country Club did some of the stroke play. That'll get me on another tangent here, where I looked at the future U.S. Amateur courses, and it's like, that's better than the U.S. Open courses. Like Bandon Dunes, where you just played several weeks ago, is part of that rotation. It's like, why don't we have the U.S. Open there? You know, because that's a great track and beautiful scenery. But that's how they do it for the U.S. Amateur, and I think the women's amateur and the senior and all the other USGA amateur championships, that's how they do it. They have a stroke play, and then that is getting you to qualify in like a knockout bracket, and then of course the 2 finalists go 36 holes to determine the winner. So I would be up for that too. I think that would even add more of a stake to it. Instead of doing like how they used to do the match play, where it was like the round of 64, because of course we would always remember Tiger to be the number 1 seed, and I'm trying to remember if he got beat one year or somebody got upset one year in the 1 seed, but that's still a lot of days to follow the match play.
Yeah. And Wes, I mean, like, you know, I said I was going to move on, but like, then we'll put a bow on it after this. But like, you want to talk about some exciting golf. So you start with the 30. Like, you don't have to change fundamentally what you're trying to do with the 70, 50, 30, whatever. Like, you start with the 30. You're trying to get into the top 8 of the stroke play part of it. You're 2 strokes down with 4 holes to go. You're trying to get, like, can you imagine the golf that we see from these dudes that know they've got to birdie 2 of the 4 or birdie 3 of the last 4? Like, you are going to see dudes going for it, like going all out, like all the stuff like that. I mean, that also brings intrigue and all of that to all of this, because it's like, oh, this dude knows if I'm going to get into the bracket, I've got to birdie 2 of the last 3 holes. I'm going balls out. You know, I mean, like, just it's that brings something to it too.
Yeah, and match, it might not be like Ryder Cup intensity with all the nationalism, of course, involved, but Scottie versus Rory, I don't care if it's just them as individuals or representing USA and Europe. That's something I want to watch, because those that's going to be the highest level of competitive golf that you see if you got into a match play. So hopefully they make the changes, but at least baby steps here, right? They got rid of that damn starting stroke stuff,
at least, yes,
like they have for the Tour Championship.
We're headed in the right direction, at least.
Oh my God! Well, Scottie Scheffler starts at 10 under par, so that's why he's like minus 200 to win
like
this
good
thing.
luck. Good luck catching Scottie Scheffler when he has a lead already. Okay, guys, the BMW, as we just said, we multiple times mentioned, it is over at Bellerive in St. Louis, Missouri. As we look at the odds board, no shock. Everybody knows, yes, it's Scottie Scheffler. About 3-1. Getting some money over at MGM, has gotten even under 3-1 over at MGM. Rory is second, kind of tied with Ludwig if you're looking at odds at most of the books out there. Sam Burns, Xander Schauffele, Tommy Fleetwood, Cam Young, Matt Fitzpatrick, Siwoo, Hideki, Goddard, Hovland, Cantlay, and Wyndham Clark. Basically, all of those you can get or find out there like sub 30. So you can see they've taken some sort of love here. Everybody else then kind of gets into that 30 or longer range this week with this tournament, but you're seeing kind of the lump stuff here. Wes, again, we're down to 50 players. So if you're wondering why the odds maybe aren't as long as usual or whatever it is, we are down to just 50 players in this tournament. It is a no-cut event, so everybody's going to get 4 rounds at this, 4 cracks at this, and so that affects the odds as well. But I mean, I can't bet Scottie at this number. Do I think Scottie's going to win? I think he's going to be there yet again. I had the top 5 last week and I called it free money. I should never do that on podcast, by the way. Sorry, but it cashed. Obviously you won the tournament, but like he's going to be in the top 5 again. It all just depends on whether you want to pay the price or not, with all of this. I can't bet him to win it, but he's definitely going to be there on Sunday.
Yeah, I certainly think so. And that's why they have now this week they have a winner without Scottie. I don't know if as many last week, because I actually played winner without Scottie and Roy. And then when the guy finishes 66, I was like, well, that was stupid, but I would have maybe gotten a couple more dollars on Siwoo in just the without Scottie market. But
we cashed a ticket, buddy. You got it across
absolutely. And make no apologies.
Feels good.
I've been having to make a lot of apologies this year.
Yeah. Let's let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Bellerive. Again, very, very, very great course, but like we said, just not super popular amongst just normal golf fans and all of that. But you should enjoy what you see here at this one this week.
Yeah, Bellerive Country Club, just west of St. Louis in Town and Country, Missouri. This course actually got established in the late 1800s. So they've hosted 3 major championships: U.S. Open in 1965, the PGA Championship twice, most recently in 2018, where, of course, I mentioned Brooks Koepka won at 16 under par. Tiger Woods 2 shots behind after that final round, 64. Robert Trent Jones Sr., the original designer, his son Reese Jones, did both of the renovations, not only in 2006 but in 2019. In terms of the renovations, it was mostly rebuilding the greens, basically from the ground up is what they did. These are bent grass, about 7,500 square feet on average, so big greens. So once we get into the modeling and all the statistical discussion, we'll talk about, how we handle that from a putting standpoint. 11.5 on the stimp, could be a little firmer and faster, might be soft early with some of the weather, and then get faster on the weekend. Got some intel, actually. Chris Hartman, VSiN listener and subscriber that lives there in St. Louis, actually did a caddying for somebody at an Evans Scholars event that was held at Bellerive, and kind of gave me that like, okay, the fairways, they're Zoysia, by the way, look pristine. They have some bounds. Zoysia fairways are what we saw last week, of course, in Memphis, what we'll see in Atlanta. Pretty generous, about 34 yards wide on average. You do have some rough here, some fescue rough, 3 to 3.5. You don't want to necessarily hit it there, but this is a big course, and they actually, with some of the renovations, lengthened, I think, like 6 of the holes. So they added about 130 or so yards. I believe the stock yardage is 74.48 for the par 70. So it is longer than what the PGA Championship setup was back in 18. 76 bunkers scattered throughout the fairway. Greens are pretty well protected. 8 water danger holes because there is a creek that runs through the course, several of these holes. So, big course for a par 70. It's 74.48, and you do have only 2 par 5s, as you typically will have at a par 70. Both are over 600 yards. 6 of the par 4s are about 460. 3 of them are beyond 500. The par 3s, a lot of variety. You got a short one at 170. You got a big long one at 237. So a lot of ranges there in between. So front 9 a little bit shorter, 36.87, 37.61 coming in. And if you're looking for courses, I think that are maybe a little bit comparable, the obvious Zoysia correlations with the other 2 playoff courses, TPC Southwind and Memphis, Eastlake, and Atlanta. And then I looked at some of the recent PGA Championship courses that were kind of on some bigger tracks like Quail Hollow, Valhalla, Southern Hills. Regular PGA Tour, I think, tournament courses that you see every single year. Bay Hill for the Arnold Palmer, Muirfield Village for Jack's event at the Memorial. Those probably looked like a little bit more of the correlations to me. There's not like one ideal course because there wasn't a designer link like you get with like Pete Dye, where you have several to choose from on those courses. But looking at this, this is, I think, going to be a test. But it's not going to be, I think, like a grind of a test. I still think we're getting kind of the same winning score as we got last week. What was it, 17 under par? Maybe we'll get more than one guy at double digits under par, but I think that's probably what you're looking at. I think the scoring is going to be similar to what we saw in the PGA 2018. We're about 15, 16 or so under. Probably's got a good chance to win this thing on Sunday.
If you guys have ever played, if you are golfers out there, if you've ever played a Robert Trent Jones course, you kind of know how his setup is. I've played several. He likes the courses to be hard. Like he likes the courses to be penal. Like they're fair, but like if you mess up, like he wants you to feel
you
it.
Can
right?
shoot big. You can shoot big numbers here. So this won't be a birdie fest.
Definitely wants you to feel it. And so while I do believe the guys that are straight and long will certainly benefit and be able to probably get at this course pretty good, there's going to be some of those kind of like Bob McIntyre scores from last week out of a couple of different guys as well, because it's just he does like punishing you if you are not playing, where you need to be playing and all the stuff like that. And so it's not one of those like just get away with it type courses. Like most Robert Trent Jones courses just aren't like that. Of note, This is basically a new course to most of the people. 33 of the 50 did not play in the 2018 PGA Championship when it was here. So the 17 that did, it's been renovated since, as Wes just mentioned. So it's like, yeah, they at least have a little bit of an idea, but the course has been renovated since. And so it's pretty much a new course for all 50 guys that are teeing it up this week. Wes, when you talk about a course that's this long, obviously distance has to be a factor in all of this, kind of like where I started with everything this week for me. I know we always talk about approach, and last week we were paramount on approach and all of that. And certainly approach is a big deal here, but a course that's this long, and certainly when we're talking about some of these par threes, like you just mentioned, that are this long and all that, like not having to hit a wood into a par three, like being able to hit your 4-iron and stuff like some of these guys are going to be able to do, I think is a big advantage as well. And so I actually did start with distance as kind of the primary builder for me, and then kind of equal out the approach side of everything. But it is a almost two-sided model for me this week, where it's just heavy off the tee, heavy driving distance, stuff like that, and then heavy approach, and that's about it for me.
Yeah, that's where I started as well. From the approach standpoint, and we've talked about this several times throughout the season here on Long Shots, about maybe like the proximity buckets can get a little bit overrated, where you're getting too knee deep in the weeds. But this is one of the rare weeks where I did use one bucket. I used approach from 200 or more. Because I think you're going to have those long shots here, where not only you have the two par threes that I think were like 215 and 237, if I'm reading that right. And you're going to have a lot of long iron shots here. Of course, on the two par fives there that are over 600, you're going to be having, if you're trying to reach in two, you're going to be well over 200. So I thought that was important as well this week. And we mentioned about approach. I think 14 of the top 15 gained at least a half a stroke a round on approach, with 10 gaining at least a full stroke. So that's 4 strokes over a tournament. That's going to matter. But to your point on distance, I will just look at that 2018 PGA Championship leaderboard. And I know that there have been some renovations in design, but basically the concept of the course that you mentioned with the RTJ design is pretty much the same.
Anything is longer.
Absolutely. And look at that leaderboard. I'm looking at the top 10, and there's always a couple outliers, right? But I'll read the names. Brooks Koepka, Tiger Woods, Adam Scott, Stuart Sink, John Rahm, Gary Woodland, Thomas Peters. What do they all have in common? They're all big and tall hitters that can stripe it off the tee. And that's what I looked at a lot this week. Now some guys may not fit the size parameters, but could still stripe it like these guys do. But that's what I looked at that. So I did look at distance here. Also a little bit of like par 4 birdie or better, because par 4s are going to decide the event, of course, when you have 12 of them on a par 70, and they are as short as 361 to as long as 514. So I did look at that. I looked at bogey avoidance because of the water hazards here, and you've got also some potentially long putts, and I'll get to that in a minute. You can make bogeys here in bunches, as we mentioned. Greens are pretty well bunkered here. About a third of the shots that missed the greens at the 2018 PGA came from the bunkers, and these are pretty deep bunkers and really, really big greens, by the way. So there will be times where it will not surprise you to have like a 40-yard bunker shot, like we saw late in the round where Siwoo kind of had one of those in Memphis, and you're going to miss on the wrong side here. And so I think some around the green, you don't want to go too much into it, but I think around the green is somewhat important. And I mentioned about the greens having some subtle slopes and the fact that they're large. You're going to see players have 50 to 60 foot putts, and they've got to lag it very well. So I thought 3-putt avoidance might have been the most important stat if you're putting in any putting this week. 3-putt avoidance, maybe you could look at a little bit of bent grass or large greens if you look at the parameters. If you go to any of the sites, BetSperts or Rick Rungood, several others, where they have different parameters, where you can not only go by the agronomy, by Bend or Bermuda, what have you, but you can go by like the size of the greens as well. So you can look at those parameters if you're a part of those sites. And but I thought 3-putt, probably if you're doing putting, was maybe the most important of those stats, because you've got a lot of potential for 3 putts here.
Yeah, I did. Depending on which site because some of them have different stats, whatever. So I did lag putting on one and then 3-putt avoidance on the other, and just kind of blended that a little bit. But same premise,
approach,
right?
putt performance. If you're using Rick Rungood, that's one of them as well.
Yeah. So just same premise as you there on that one. I will say we landed on the same guy, just in a different fashion here, and maybe it's just because of what happened this past week to me. I got a top 5 on Sam Burns. You're going to go ahead and play him outright. I should play him outright. He's number 2 in my model, with a bullet, right? It's like Scottie, Burns, and then like a pretty decent little gap, actually, to third place. And again, this is me just playing maybe scared here a little bit, considering I've had him in contention twice now in the past month, and he's let me down on Sunday. But I do have him top 5. He always seems to be in contention. He's playing about as well as anyone in the world right now, other than his good buddy. But you're going to go ahead and pull the trigger on the outright.
I am, and I'm also going to play a placement. And even when we have different players, obviously, especially when we all land and have a pod play, we're all rooting for that extra hard. But, I thought, okay, if I'm not going to win, I want you guys to get Sam Burns on the outright, but then I was going to be kicking myself because I was I played him on a placement, but man, I should have stuck with him. And sometimes you got to stick with guys when they let you down. And that's a little bit what I'm doing with Sam Burns here. T4 or better in 4 of his last 6 starts. 5 of them are either playoff events like last week in Memphis, major championships. In fact, the last 2, by the way, the Open and the U.S. Open, or signature events. And one of the things that stood out to me, and I know some weeks were team no putt. I had a little bit of putting in there this week. He's known as Bermuda Burns, right, for his putting prowess on the Bermuda. But it's actually been bent grass that has been his best surface over the last year. And when I was looking through those numbers, I was like, that stunned me. He is really up there. Because sometimes you see guys and they are specialists on one surface, but Sam Burns is a good putter, I think, pretty much anywhere. And it's hard to believe, though, that it's been over 3 years since his last win, but he's as close as ever. And maybe Scottie's probably one of his best friends, and their kids are good friends, and they play together every year at the par 3 at Augusta, and the little kids are rolling around in the caddy bibs and all that. But maybe that gives you a little bit of an extra edge. Tom Kim, also another close friend of Scottie, and we've seen Tom Kim obviously get back in the winner's circle this year. Sometimes that does motivate you a little bit, besides the money and the FedExCup points and the President's Cup points and all the other ancillary things these guys are playing for. Maybe that's you know what? I need to go out and win. And Sam Burns is certainly capable. So it was 16-1 for me in the without market. Probably low 20s if you're playing, including Scottie, and willing to take him on, which I don't know if I'm willing to do. And I'm actually not willing to do the fact he won by 8 shots. Do you want to really step in front of that necessarily? If you do, be obviously very cautious and maybe play lighter with the dollars this week.
Yeah, I like I said, on the top 5, and who knows, maybe between now and then I get a little courage and come back in on the outright with him. But we share him. We also share Jake Knapp, and I think this kind of fits the profile of looking at who you're playing and look at who I'm playing this week. Drives it a long way. That's a big thing for me this week. That's obviously going to make a guy climb the model when you're talking about that. And then for me, seeing the way he played this past week, Wes, it looked like he was back to being Jake Knapp for the first time since we were betting him all at the beginning of the year, when he was just absolutely on fire. Injuries, sometimes not only do they linger, but also they just get you out of form. You're making subtle adjustments that you didn't know you were making to try to compensate for the injury and all of that. And it seemed like this past week he finally looked like the Jake Knapp of old. He did, and that's why he makes the card this week. Plus the fact that he fits the profile. Let's see, big long guy off the tee. Yep. Ding, 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 Jake Knapp. By the way, I did put in the column, which is now up at vsin.com, these scenarios this week for the guys that are just kind of outside, because it's only the top 30 that get to Atlanta for Eastlake next week for the Tour Championship. Jake Knapp, I believe, needs like a 3-way tie for 16th. That's the minimum finish. So Jake Knapp, top 20, I think certainly would be a prudent bet. And that goes all the way down to like the bottom right now is Matt McCarty, who needs like a solo second, that bare minimum to make it. So there's all these scenarios for these guys. So most of the guys have clinched, but the guys like Knapp that are kind of in that,
+5, -5 outside the standings really need this, I think. And I think that that's going to be extra important to Jake Knapp because part of the season has been lost. He started so great, and then he had that injury, and he missed the better part of 2 months. That'd be a hell of an accomplishment if he got in the Tour Championship for missing 2 months with injury. And we mentioned it last week. He was 5-way tie for the first-round leader. He was 7th off the tee, 12th on approach, 6th in ball striking, 4th tee to green. It was actually the putter. That's probably why he didn't finish top 3 to 5 last week. But putting has been one of the best parts of his game all season. 15th on the PGA Tour for strokes gained putting. So, I know that there's maybe a little bit of like, oh man, is Jake Knapp, who's obviously proven himself to be a very good and consistent player on this tour, is he ready to win kind of like one of these big time events, because there is a step up in class from winning like a Mexico Open or a boilerplate regular PGA Tour event to a signature event or to a FedExCup event before you even get to like a major or a Players or something like that. I think he is. I think he fits this profile. When I mentioned all those guys earlier, it's like, man, that seems like a guy that's going to be on the first page of the leaderboard here because he's going to have them shorter relative to the field in terms of iron shots. So Jake Knapp, he was one that really stood out to me where it's like, you know what, I'm going to bet this guy next week.
So another guy long off the tee and I think probably fits into the Sam Burns category here of seems like he's in contention, not just quite getting across the finish line. You're going to play Ludwig this week.
I am 14-1 in the without, 18-1. I think kind of consensus in the market. Some 16s out there. Long, tall players that stripe it off the tee, and that's Ludwig Aubert, I think, who I don't know if I want to call it a disappointing season. Maybe it's disappointing because we probably, you, me, and Kelly and several others, because we had these expectations for him, right? Like this dude, man, this dude's got the goods.
I would have lost a bet. If somebody would have told me who's the dude that might break through and win 3 events this year or something like that, like I would have picked Ludwig, right?
And it's damn pretty off the tee, and it's like, it's so smooth. It's like, how does this guy not win all the time? He's got 8 top 10s, by the way, in 18 events, but still hadn't won this season. And that's surprising. And I think this is a great setup for him. T7 last week in Memphis, led for off the strokes gained off the tee, 2nd in greens and regulation. That might not matter as much this week with 7,500 square foot greens. You still got to hit it on the right side. And 4th for driving distance. Ludwig, I think this just strikes me as, because he reminds me a little bit of an Adam Scott, who played obviously very well here in 2018, obviously tall and lean, rips it off the tee. And, I think he kind of fits that profile. And Ludwig, I thought, was a guy I was like, and I did end up playing him last week in a placement market, which did get there. But he was one I was like, oh, my God, if I don't play him and he finally wins this week, I'm going to be so furious. But so I'm going to, he was a guy I knew I was going to play this week. And, I've been disappointed most of the times I bet on the big Swede, but we're going to go for more here this week.
Yeah, I mean, he the profile that we're talking about, he fits the profile as well as anybody. 4th overall in my model this week is just, kind of gets in that deal. If I can't play everybody, I ended up playing a guy kind of in the same neighborhood, so just can't really get there. Another guy, we're talking about profiles. Wyndham Clark fits exactly the profile that we're talking about.
He does, and it was kind of a tiebreaker for me with a couple of these guys, but I ended up going with Wyndham here, 25-1 in the without. He's actually been hit a little bit because that was in the 30s. Continue to play strong. I know he missed a couple cuts. He missed those cuts at the Midwest events. I don't worry about those, coming off a major championship. But top 5 at the Travelers, top 5 last week in Memphis. And he is the guy, I mentioned this earlier about the President's Cup. He is currently 7th. Now, I think he's going to be picked on the team by Brandt Snedeker.
Yeah.
But guys still want to qualify and not get a captain's pick. So the 2 guys that he is behind, and I'm looking to see actually how many points are separating them, but the 2 guys he is behind right now are Ben Griffin and Colin Morikawa. Both could make that team, but man, they're not totally convincing. I don't think necessarily right now in terms of President's Cup, where maybe they get captain's pick, but they're not locks. I think Wyndham Clark, being that he is 68 points now behind Colin Morikawa for that 6th spot, and Chris Goddard, by the way, also right behind Wyndham Clark. I think he wants to clinch here. Scottie's going to be on. Cameron Young's going to be on. Sam Burns. Henley looks in pretty good shape, like those top four. But then you get to Griffin, Morikawa, Clark, Goddard, Xander, JJ Spawn. You can kind of throw a blanket over them a little bit for the qualifying spot. So Wyndham, I think, big, long guy. He can go well this week. And, go ahead and lock up that President's Cup spot.
Yeah, for me, my guys, we don't have the same guys, but again, the profile, and like I said, I can't play everybody, and they're all in the same deal. So like my shortest guy is Cam Young this week. He's third to sixth in the various models that I ran. Not that these guys need motivation. They don't. They're going out and trying to play their best every single time. But it is kind of a $5 million heads up between him and Matt Fitzpatrick this week. Mm-hmm. And that's more than first place of this event. I mean, this event plays $3.6 million to first, and it's a heads up for second place between him and Matt Fitzpatrick, right? And so there's a lot of money on the line for Cam Young here in this one. And I get it, disappointed last week a little bit, but look, that course wasn't necessarily the fit for him that we talked about it. We were not all that worried about distance last week. We were worried about just sole accuracy and all that. And now you bring distance back into play. He's long and straight, which is hard to do. And so really do like Cam Young this week. And you just mentioned Goddard, same deal. He's the next play for me. Long off the tee, has nice iron play. Everything, multiple time winners, so can get across the finish line, which we were talking about that some of these other guys that we're worried about, we've seen him be able to get that done as well. And just as far as the profile goes, you go into the models and, he's no lower than 8th in any of mine, but as high as 4th in one of them. So, I mean, again, not the very tip top of the model, but you got to remember there's only 50 players in the model this week. So, going to be a little tougher to climb. And so really do like the profiles of those two guys. And again, they fit along with all the guys that we're talking about, our nap plays, our whatever plays, these guys fit that profile there. As well. The final play on your card, Kurt Kitayama.
Yeah, and a guy that doesn't maybe necessarily get the size parameters, being that he's only, 5'7", but he's another guy that can rip it off the tee. And Kitayama, essentially, he clinched his spot in the Tour Championship last week. He is going to still remain in that top 30 with the top 12 in Memphis. Been remarkably consistent this year. 7 top 10s, 10 top 25s, 10th on approach on the Tour, 14th in total driving. And he's another guy that I think really fits with these long irons. Like when I talked about the guys that were pretty good over 200 yards, he was certainly has been one of them, at least over the years. Obviously the usual suspects, Knapp, Scheffler, Ludwig, Minwoo, guys that are big hitters off the tee, certainly qualify for that. Wyndham Clark, another one. But he was a little bit more, and he's been kind of a Sharpie play. So it's do I kind of, someone knows something that I don't know and I go with the someones? Do I, and that was maybe a little bit of that this week where it's kind of mid-range guy that might surprise a little bit this week that you haven't seen right up at the top of the leaderboard in the last several weeks, but has been remarkably consistent. This is an event, by the way, with the exception, and keep in mind, these are all at different courses.
Yeah.
But this is an event in recent years. The only long shots that have really hit here are Keegan Bradley twice at Aronimink and Castle Pines. You look last year, Scottie won this thing 5-2, Victor 18-1, Cantlay 16-1, Cantlay 25-1, Rahm 10-1, JT 16-1, Dustin Johnson 10-1. So more often than not, that's why you can't really go that far down the board where it's oh man, this guy might have good driving numbers, but he's 125-1 there for a reason. So it's tough to put those guys on the card this week. So that's why I think we're sticking a little bit more to the top and towards the upper middle this week.
I want my guy to have the best chance to win the tournament. I think the best chance to win this tournament is to hit it long, stay in the fairway. And then I think that puts you in the driver's seat here. So that's how I built the card the way that I did. Will be super interesting. Obviously, we'll be back on this podcast next week talking about how Scottie won the thing by 5 strokes, but it is what it is. But it's been crazy to see the consistency that he put up this year with only getting across the finish line twice. But There's a lot of guys that we just talked about that didn't win any, and hadn't won in years,
right?
And all of that, right? And so it's like when we say only win twice, think about that. Whenever
it's hard. It's hard whether you're a player or a bettor. Like it's hard to get these across. Like even playing the without where it was a foregone conclusion, it was still a little bit of a sweat, man, to get home. So you take them how you can get them and you move on.
Guys, again, if you have not done so already, if you're listening to us on the audio side, subscribe, rate, review. Please do appreciate that a ton. Just hit the little automatic download. Make sure that it's always waiting on you there. And if you're over on the video side on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up on this thing. And let us know in the comment section, is there anybody that you are on that we are not on this week? And why are you on them? Maybe somebody else watching this video wants to tell you for the pick that you have this week. As always, VSiN.com for the full written preview over there from Wes, and any additional plays will be posted over there on VSiN.com/picks. For Wes, I am Matt. Good luck on all your BMW picks.